Hello everyone, it's me Uncle John. Today I am going to read S4 4022 Race into Space by Eric Arnold. Chapter 1, Out of This World. Would you like to take the trip of a lifetime? How about going to an orbiting sports complex where you can participate in a zero-gravity Olympic Games? Can you imagine taking a field trip to the historic site of the first moon landing? Does visiting a theme park in space or taking a trip to Mars interest you? If you said yes to any of these questions, you're ready to be a space tourist. People just like you, not only trained astronauts, want the adventure of traveling in space. Companies are planning for space tourism. They are developing new spacecraft. They are designing plans for towns on the moon with parks and special attractions, and even floating space hotel. Don't worry if you miss your space shuttle flight to your space hotel. Just hop aboard the nearest space elevator. The magnetized vehicle you are riding in will climb a very long cable. The plans for this awesome elevator are being developed right now. Stop by your space hotel. But don't be surprised if there is no bed for you, for anybody. Instead, strap yourself into a sleeping bag that is attached to a support pad. Then clip the pad to the inside of a sleep bunk so you don't float away or bump into anybody or anything because of weightlessness. This is one way the astronauts and cosmonauts who are working and living in space at the ISS sleep. The ISS is a huge orbiting laboratory that helps scientists learn more about space. At the ISS, the crew learns how people can live in space for future explorations. But to truly understand the future of our space exploration, it is important to look back, sometimes way back. Chapter 2, Cool Space People. Around 3000 BC, the ancient Babylonians studied the sky. They lived in what is present-day Iraq. They were among the earliest astronomers. Astronomers are scientists who study objects in space. They identified constellations or groupings of stars as seen from Earth. They made charts of the stars they saw. Chinese around 2500 BC began to observe planets and developed a 365-day calendar. They based the calendar on the belief that the sun took 365 days to journey across the sky. It is believed that some of the ancient pyramids in Egypt, including the Great Pyramid built around 2700 BC, point to a certain constellation or star. According to this theory, the pyramids were built to help the dead find their way to the afterlife. The Mayas of present-day Central America and the Aztecs of present-day Central Mexico also looked to the stars for answers. Like the Chinese, they used the skies to create a calendar. We know this from the buildings and artifacts they left behind. There are 365 steps on this Mayan pyramid, the number of days in a solar year. The Ptolemy was a Greek astronomer. He is known as the father of astronomy. He believed that Earth was at the center of the universe. 13 centuries later, Nicholas Copernicus, a Polish lawyer, developed a new theory that put the sun at the center of the universe. Galileo Galilei, an Italian astronomer and mathematician, made a telescope and viewed outer space with it. Like Copernicus, he thought the sun was the center of the universe. In England, Isaac Newton improved upon the telescope. He also developed the theory of gravity, the invisible pulling power that holds everything on Earth to the ground. Newton applied the same idea of gravity to the sun and planets. Actually, all the objects in the universe, planets, moons, and stars, have gravity too. It's gravity that keeps them all in line. Chapter 3. On your mark, get, set, go. Today, many countries work together and share ideas as they explore outer space. That was not always the case. Not too long ago, countries were actually racing to get into space first. On October 4th, 1957, a satellite called Sputnik first was launched by the Soviet Union. A satellite is a spacecraft built to orbit or travel around Earth or another planet. This ball-shaped satellite was very tiny but very mighty. It only measured 23 inches across, but it weighed 184 pounds. It took 90 minutes for it to orbit Earth. The United States worked fast and hard as well. On July 31st, 1958, it launched its first successful satellite, Explorer First, but Sputnik first beat Explorer First into space by 119 days. The space race was on. Both countries sped toward the next challenge. It was time to see if a living creature could survive traveling in space. Chapter 4. Moonwalk Your Dog. Question: what do dogs, monkeys, rats, mice, fish, ants, spiders, bird, frog, honeybees, and jellyfish have in common? They all have been travelers in space. In fact, animals went up in space before the first human did. Scientists wanted to learn how an animal's body could handle space travel. This way, scientists could make sure that space travel would be safe for humans. In 1957, the first living creature to travel in space was a duck named Laika. Barker in English. She traveled in the Soviet spacecraft Sputnik 2. Sadly, Sputnik 2 was not designed to return safely to Earth after a week of orbiting in space. Laika died due to lack of air to breathe. Strelka and Berka in 1961 saw the Soviet Union sent up 2 other dogs. Strelka, Little Arrow, and Berka, Squirrel. They traveled in Sputnik 4. They orbited Earth for 1 day. Both died. Both dogs returned safely. Dogs were not the only early space travelers. Goldo, a squirrel monkey, was the first monkey to go up in space. He took his trip in 1958 aboard the Jupiter AEM-13 missile. Everything went well in flight. After the return trip, the rocket landed in the water as planned, but the flotation device did not work. Golden was lost at sea. Ham, a chimpanzee trained for more than a year before he was sent into space. He learned to pull a right-hand lever when a white light flashed and to pull a left-handed lever when a blue light flashed. He was rewarded with banana pellets, which made his training very appealing. In 1961, this astrochimp made his safe flight on the Mercury Redstone second rocket. All of the animal space explorer paved the way for space travels by humans. Here are a few space pioneers who paved the way for others. Yuri Gagarin was the first person in space and the first to orbit Earth on April 12, 1961. Alan Shepard was the first American in space on May the 5th, 1961. John Glenn was the first American to orbit Earth on February 20th, 1962. The Valentina Tereshkov was the first woman to travel into space on June 16, 1963. Sally Ride was the first American woman in space on June 18, 1983. Neil Armstrong was the first person to walk on the moon on July 20, 1969. Guion Guy Bluffer was the first African American in space on August 30, 1983. Mae Jemison was the first African American woman in space on September 12, 1992. Alison Onizuka was the first Asian American in space on January 24th. He was killed in the explosion of the Space Shuttle Challenger on January 28, 1986. Franklin Cheng Diaz was the first Hispanic on January 12th, 1986. Ellen Ochoa was the first Hispanic woman in space on April 4th, 1993. Chapter 5, Space Wanderers. As a future space tourist, you have something in common with the planet. The word planet comes from a Greek word that means wanderer, one day. You may wander the solar system and possibly beyond into the universe. But first it might help to know the places you will see on your travels. The solar system is centered around the sun. All of the objects in the system, from a tiny bit of dust to the most faraway planet, orbit and spin around the sun. After all, the word solar means of the sun. It is the sun's gravity that locks all of its orbiting objects into place. The sun is a star. Like all stars, it is a huge ball of exploding hot gases. It is close enough to Earth for us to benefit from its light and heat. The sun is a medium-sized star with a diameter about 109 times more than that of Earth. There are at least 100 billion stars in our galaxy, the Milky Way. A galaxy is a grouping of stars, and the sun is just one of the group. A planet is an enormous round object made up of rock or gas. It orbits and spins around the sun. It does not make its own light. Planets reflect the light of the sun. The 9 planets in our solar system, in order of closeness to the sun, are Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. All of the planets except Mercury and Venus have moons that orbit around them. 4 of the planets, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune, have a system of rings around them. The rings may look solid, but they are actually made up of separate ice-covered rocks. The rocks range in size from dust-sized specks to rocks as big as mountains. The brightest 2 rings belong to Saturn. Artist's concept of Saturn, a possible planet on the outer edge of the solar system. Some astronomers think there might be actually more planets in our solar system, and some astronomers believe that frosty Pluto is not a planet at all. There's an icy cluster of objects just past Neptune, and Pluto is the largest one. And those are the cold, hard, and sometimes hot facts about our solar system. Chapter 6, get ready to go. Now that you know what is in the solar system, you're ready to plan your trip. Do you have an extra $20 million? That's what it cost California businessman Dennis Tito to buy a ticket to be the first space tourist. He was launched into space on April 28th in the Russian Soyuz capsule and spent 6 days on the ISS. Hopefully the price will come way down when it's your turn to be a space tourist. So you'll have a little money left over to buy some space souvenirs. Remember to study your Russian, Italian, and French. These are just a few of the languages that are spoken on the ISS. The United States and Russia are working together along with 14 other countries to make the ISS a success. It's being built in space, piece by piece. When it's finished, the ISS will be equal to the size of about 2 football fields. It is so heavy that it can only be built in the weightlessness of space. Upon its completion in 2006, 43 shuttle trips to the ISS will have brought up all the different equipment and parts that it's made up of. 2 astronauts at work in the Hubble Space Telescope. While you are packing, check to see that your camera works too. In 1990, astronauts on the Space Shuttle Discovery launched the first orbiting space telescope, the Hubble Space Telescope. This telescope was sent into outer space to give scientists a closer look at the universe. At first, Hubble was sending back pictures that were out of focus because the lens was bad. Lens was bad. In 1993, astronauts from the Space Shuttle and the board did some spacewalking and repaired it. Yuri Malenchenko, the astronaut who got married while on the ISS with American astronaut Ed Lu. Outer space is a great place to have a party. Already, there has been the first space wedding. On August 10, 2003, Russian cosmonaut Yuri Malenchenko married Ekaterina Dmitriev. Yuri was living aboard the ISS at the time, but the wedding took place at the Johnson Space Center in Houston. Via video during the party, Ekaterina stood next to a life-size cutout of Yuri. Hopefully all your friends can make the trip to your out-of-this-world party. Anything is possible in space. Enjoy the trip and don't forget your toothbrush. The end.